From my time spent on the internet, which is quite a lot, especially with the anime community, I see quite a lot of things and opinions that differ from one another. The most common one, I think, is one of the most garbage opinions and one of the most ridiculous things that I have heard, and that is Dragon Ball has no plot. Most of these statements come from self-proclaimed elitists that spend hours upon hours a day watching anime, and immediately they are better anime fans than a person who doesn't watch them every day or barely does or is just a casual anime viewer. Dragon Ball is a mainstream anime and the one who has done a revolution on the shonen manga and anime industry. But liking it is wrong, makes you sound stupid, or maybe you're just an idiot who has no idea what anime with plot is. Am I right, elitists? Am I right? Am I now part of you because I'm saying this? Right? Dragon Ball is mentioned as a no-plot anime so many times and people think it hides behind screams, transformations, and of course the fights. And this argument is a pretty dumb one. First of all, fights are the most boring aspects of Dragon Ball. They are very repetitive and don't introduce you to new things, or at least they stop doing that. Dragon Ball fighting style develops a lot early on, but then it stops and is dragged till the end of the manga or the anime. Nothing particularly shines there to get you really interested. The fights don't involve too many strategic manners like Naruto, for example, does. Dragon Ball is pretty straightforward, with the stronger guy winning more so than having everyone think strategic ways to win the battle. A disclaimer that needs to be said is that Dragon Ball does have some strategic ideas behind, because otherwise it would be so goddamn boring or unbearable, I would say. But it wins over with the beautiful looking fights and good concept, but what makes those fights worth it is the build-up. And this is something that people tend to claim that Dragon Ball doesn't really have, which is actually a very bad statement that I don't even know where to begin with. Let's be honest. Build-up is part of plot, right? Of the writing, on what you want to do with it. But first, let me explain what a plot is. A plot is a casual sequence of events. The quote-unquote why for the things that happen in the story. The plot draws the reader into characters' lives and helps the reader understand the choices that the characters make. This is what a plot is. It's a casual sequence of events. And of course, there we get the why those things are happening in the story, which leads even into more development. And of course, now let's just take one simple example from Dragon Ball, because I don't want to go through the whole series in order to actually explain everything why Dragon Ball has a plot. Let's just take something out of it. Okay, now let's take the Frieza arc or the Namek arc, as it is the easiest and people really relate to it because it has everything. It has the screaming, it has the transformation, and it also has a very cool fight, especially in the manga. It has cool fights, I should be saying, not just fight, because there are a lot of fights that happen there. Now, Goku has learned that he is a Saiyan, right? He sends Gohan, Krillin, and Bulma, not his sons, but he basically tells them they can go and he will be joining them later on once he's healed. And there are Vegeta, the guy who beat up Goku, right? But there is one other guy who is far more dangerous. Frieza, somebody that King Kai, Vegeta himself, and everybody is scared of. That immediately gives the viewer a reason why they should watch. They want to see what this Frieza guy is all about. And of course, the story develops, we learn who Frieza is, what he does, he's the Galactic Emperor, and everything of that nature. We learn about what Frieza really has on his hand, and we learn how strong Frieza is. But first, let me explain what makes a good plot. Good plot is a story that should satisfy readers' questions about the 5 W's, which are what, where, why, who, and when. And now I took just one arc as an example. Just one out of the 3 that Dragon Ball Z had, or 3 major arcs, I should be saying. I'm just taking here Dragon Ball Z as an example because there are quite some people that have skipped actually the original Dragon Ball, which is a big mistake, but still, I don't want to drag this for when Krillin, Gohan, and Bulma are headed to now. Aren't you interested on what is there? When you hear about Frieza, aren't you interested to know who Frieza is? What Frieza does? All things of that nature. That arc, which is actually considered one of the worst by the Dragon Ball fans, but it actually has an interesting villain, which is a huge part of a good plot, because Frieza adds so much depth to that arc that make him special. And with this, what I wanted to say and what I wanted to prove is that Dragon Ball has a plot, and we are not even talking or getting into what is Dragon Ball really meant to be, or what these characters mean to the Dragon Ball world. We are just taking a small portion of the Dragon Ball universe and just expanding on it a little bit to confirm that Dragon Ball actually has a plot. And what is even worse is that these guys shit on the face of the shonen genre. Dragon Ball is the face of shonen genre. If you are watching it on 2018, you might not be that much into it because a lot of different animes have come, and I'm not here to tell you that Dragon Ball is the best anime of all time. Dragon Ball is the greatest shonen manga / anime because back when it was being made or it was starting to be published, Dragon Ball was something new, something fresh. It had very different character designs, very appealing to people to actually start watching because aesthetics are actually something very important, and Dragon Ball does deliver on that. Then after that, after you have gotten people to somehow watch what you're trying to create, then you need to get them hooked up and actually tell them why they should stay. Give them a reason for them to stay, which is something that Dragon Ball did. It's a story of a monkey boy who doesn't know shit about the real world, who has never seen a woman or anything else. This monkey boy actually develops into beating the Emperor of the Universe, saving the Earth multiple times, and even on the modern Dragon Ball, which is a huge downgrade, Goku is still developing, and if you watch his story, you can see that he went from that monkey boy to actually fighting gods, which is very impressive, and it is actually telling you a story. And here we are not even mentioning how much impact Goku has on the other characters and how well Toriyama uses Goku's character in order to develop the others or actually give them moments of shine. For example, he has Goku get a heart attack so the others can shine. He has Goku switch bodies with Ginyu so Vegeta, Piccolo, Gohan, and even Krillin get their time before Goku goes on to finish. So on and so on. Goku gets killed by Raditz. Well, we all know that Goku is always going to be light, and that is for a reason, because some other guys need to do something before he joins in. That is something that has always been with Dragon Ball, and that is something very important to understand. As I said before, it is very ridiculous statement to make that Dragon Ball has no plot when it is actually a very appealing manga or anime. And sadly enough, there are other big animes, mainstream quote-unquote animes that fall under this, just like One Piece, Naruto, etc, etc, and even My Hero Academia or Boku no Hero Academia is going into that trope, and soon enough you will see people hating on it just because it is famous, while they fail to realize the fact that these animes are actually famous for a reason. It is okay not to like them. I don't like every anime out there or shonen anime. I don't like all of them. There are many of the mainstream ones that I actually didn't like, but I'm not shitting on them because yeah, they might not be for me, but they are for somebody else, and that somebody else is actually allowed to have his own opinion and to have his own liking. If you really like Dragon Ball, then you should stand up for it. If you like Naruto or any other series, stand up for it. And somebody else actually critiques it, then just see what they are trying to say before jumping. What I'm said here, yes, I'm a big Dragon Ball fan. I covered Dragon Ball. And I love studying Dragon Ball, and I just said that Dragon Ball fights are boring. Why? Because I don't find them very, is what I like is how the fight builds up and how it goes up until that point, instead of just having Goku and the other antagonists just throwing punches at each other. Because yeah, that is why I didn't like Tournament of Power, and this kind of logic has actually forced Toei to just produce Dragon Ball Super or go along with Universal Survival Arc or Tournament of Power, which was purely based on fights and had little to no story and little to no development, which was such a huge turn off for me, especially coming on from something that was ruined in the end, but actually had a great concept as the Future Trunks arc. So the problem is, you can like one anime, you cannot like, but you can't make such a ridiculous statement as saying that Dragon Ball has no plot, because that way you're not just offending one person or two, you are offending the creator, Akira Toriyama, who actually goes on to say about when time was for Goku to fly to Namek or the other to fly to Namek. He goes like, yeah, it was one of the scariest decisions to take, and because not many animes were successful with traveling across space. And we're talking here about 1984. We're not talking here, not actually 1984, it was a bit later than that. I'm not really sure which year exactly the Namek arc was published, but still, that's not the main point. We are talking about an anime that has 30 years that it has been produced. We're not talking now where we see that all the time, but Dragon Ball had the courage at a time where such things were not successful to actually go on and make that thing successful, and actually that, the Namek arc, turned out to be such a great thing for the show itself, as it developed the show very well. So I don't really want to get into more details about Dragon Ball, because this is becoming very annoying and frustrating. What I wanted to prove is the fact that Dragon Ball has actually a great, very good plot, and one of the best that you will see at the shonen genre. Are there better than it? Yes, there are. I'm not saying that it is the best. It has its inconsistencies, it has its problems and plot holes. But what people tend to fail understanding is the fact that no long-running anime has been perfect, and you cannot expect perfection. Of course, there are going to be plot holes, retcons, especially with such a huge series like Dragon Ball that actually has a lot of things to expand. Something more to add would just make this worse, and I don't really want to get into how much Dragon Ball has developed, because that is another video. I want to make a full video going through the Dragon Ball development, or maybe make a huge series about it, because there are a lot of things. It is mind-blowing to just think that, as mentioned before, a monkey boy goes on to fight a god. Now what we want to know is, how did he get from point A to point B? How did he get from being just one guy who doesn't know shit to actually fight a god? How did he get the fighting instincts? What happened with him? How did he get so strong, and all things of that nature? And not only just Goku, but also other characters who develop just as well as him, as I mentioned it before with Vegeta or Tenshinhan or Piccolo, who turned from antagonists to protagonists later on, and especially Vegeta, who still carries on as the second most important character of the show. Or even you have Gohan's development, a guy who was forced to fight. He had a great potential but never really wanted to fight. He just fought for a good reason, to save his people, save his friends and things of that nature, unlike his father, which is a great thing. Gohan really gives Dragon Ball something huge that I still see so many people failing to realize. Super did such a great job with grasping Gohan's character, for him actually wanting to be a scholar instead of a fighter, but we see in Tournament of Power that when the stakes are so high, he will leave everything behind and he will be there to fight and actually protect the people he cares about. This is all about this video, guys. So if you think that Dragon Ball has no plot, then let me tell you, you're retarded. Straight up, you're retarded. And if you don't like Dragon Ball's plot, then that is something else and everything is fine with you. Just Dragon Ball is not for you. That's all what I can say, but it is for so many other people. So if you enjoyed this video, which I hope you did, at least I tried, because this is a rant and I've seen that people like rants. So if you liked it, please smash that like button. Comment your thoughts down below and let me know what do you think about these anime elites who hide themselves every day behind Crunchyroll and go to the most unpopular animes that ever exist, and they will brag into your face that they spent like a week maybe of their life watching that anime, that they don't have anybody to talk about, but they at least can shame other people for liking mainstream animes, because yeah, they are mainstream for a reason, they're good. So subscribe with notifications enabled and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.